All right, I'd like to start off by saying Barak Atha Yahawah, Ba'Hashem Yahawashi, Ba'Hashem Rawchaa Qadash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Romans chapter 11. This is another BTTB, which is an acronym for Back to the Basics. And pretty much in this lesson, we're going to tackle Romans, the 11th chapter. This chapter is pretty long and it's pretty detailed. There's a lot of info in it, so I may have to do it in two parts. So let's see how the Spirit rolls. And because there's another chapter I want to go into to build on this, but I'm not sure if that's going to be on the second part or the first part. But nevertheless, let's get into it. Now, Romans chapter 11, as you can see on your screen, is a scripture that one of the scriptures that these wacky tacky Christians like to go to inject all people into the message and salvation of Yahawah B'Hashem Yahawashi. But what you have to ask yourself is this: what was the reason that Yahawashi came on the scene? Why was he born into the earth, and why was he on the scene, and what was his purpose? Well, basically his purpose was to come down to earth, bring out the message of the Father of repentance through faith, through grace, and ultimately become a sacrifice for the nation of Israel. Now, why is that important? Because when you go back into the law, when the Lord gave the laws, statutes, and commandments to Moses to give to the nation of Israel, there was a particular negotiation of this contract that took place. And that negotiation of the contract that took place was if any of the Israelites would break any of the laws, statutes, and commandments in the Bible, there were certain rituals that they had to do, mostly through the shedding of blood of particular clean animals to receive forgiveness for sins. And that was, read to the people, to Israel back then, to our people back then. It was agreed by them, and then it was made of force through the blood of oxen. All right. So there came a point where the sacrifices were being run down to the ground. This is why the Lord said that I don't want to smell in your feasts and your assemblies and your new moons and your high holy days. I don't want to know about nothing. And even if you sacrifice to me something clean like a lamb or whatever the case may be, it would be like if you offered swine's flesh to me. So we as a nation got cut off and became orphans. The Lord left us to our own, just left us out there. And throughout the years and generations, our forefathers in the different empires that they were in and captivities that they were in started to mimic and follow the laws and the customs of the nations. This is how we became unclean. This is one of the ways that we became unclean. When we go to the book of Hosea, and this is why it's important to understand the history, the biblical history of the Israelites. That's the title for a lesson, for probably a series for a brother if they would like it. Like Barak or the brother, from Men of Valor. Damn, I haven't spoken about that brother in a little while. I forgot the brother's name. Salaki, bro. I forgot the brother's name. So Salaki, my brother. It ain't on purpose. It's just that, I've seen your videos off and on, but I just haven't spoken your name in so long that right now it's eluding me. So please forgive me. Or whoever, would like to jump on that. This is Hosea chapter 8, verse 8. So you have to understand the history of Israel according to the Bible, what happened. And one of the things, or one of the curses that fell upon our people was if we were to break the law, statutes, and commandments, the Lord would scatter us abroad to all these nations. And among these nations, as it says, we shall find no ease. we pretty much were in a destitute state. You know, we were in a place where we were so far gone that we didn't even recognize that we were Israelites at one point. All right. So Hosea 8:8, it says, Israel is swallowed up, not the nations. Now shall they, the Israelites, be among the Gentiles, the other nations, as a vessel wherein is no pleasure. So we became strange to the Father through the wearing of strange apparel. There's many scriptures on it. Oh, this got to be... Oh, you could still do a lesson on it, my brother. This is because I was gonna do the lesson earlier, but I had to take care of some business. The brother from out there in Des Moines, Mathathia, says, "Dang, Apostle beat me to it." Yahawah Shemel Shai Brakatah Qadash Shalom. Hey, Shalom. Yahawah Shemel Shai Bashim Qadash Brakatah. You know, but you can still do it, brother, because you know every brother that does a lesson on this, we do lessons on the same thing all the time, and every brother has a different output or aspect to it, different precepts, you know. So just jump on down, brother. Don't even sweat that, because there's plenty to go around. The spirit is abundant, my brother. So Israel is swallowed up. Now shall they be among the Gentiles as a vessel wherein there's no pleasure, because we lost our way. So let's get into it. This is the book of Romans chapter 11 verse 1. It says, Israel is not cast away. I say then, and this is the Apostle Paul speaking to Israelite foreigners, what the English equivalent calls Gentiles. I say then, hath the Most High cast away his people? Because the Jews in Jerusalem were saying that those Israelite foreigners were casted away. They're nothing but heathens now. All right? So the Apostle Paul is coming back and saying, have the Most High cast away his people? The Most High forbid. Because even at that point, the Lord rejected the ones that knew that they were Israelites. So the whole nation at one point got the rejection, because it had to be that way so that it would make way or room for the Messiah to come in and justify those that believed in him or believed in the Father through him, and would justify them by faith instead of by the works of the law. Because by the works of the law we cannot be justified, because we are all as an unclean thing. We all, go off. So he's asked the question, has the Most High cast away his people? The Most High forbid, for I also am an Israelite. Because those Jews in Jerusalem, there's a point even now, even to this day, some people teach that if you're not a Judite, you can't be saved. You hear the testimony of the Apostle Tahar, Elder Apostle Tahar, where he mentioned about the followers of Yahweh ben Yahweh, and they say that if you're a West Indian, you can't be saved. If you're a Haitian, you can't be saved. So it doesn't matter if you're dark skinned with woolly hair. If you're not a Judite, you can't be saved. You see, so there's a lot that goes on with Jake or Judah in general to oppress the rest of the nation. That's why in the book of Isaiah chapter 11, and we're going to take our time with this, and like I said, it has to be 2 parts or 3 parts or whatever the Spirit wants, because I want to go through it as best as possible. Isaiah chapter 11 verse 3, the envy also of Ephraim shall depart. Because they're not the head. They were the head at one time, but the Lord took it away from our forefathers and gave it to Judah, because it was first Reuben's, then it was transferred over to Ephraim, then it was transferred over to Judah, because Judah was pretty much the head tribe regardless. It says, the envy also of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. And this is part of the vexation. And the part of the vexation is the Jews in Jerusalem calling the Israelite foreigners, heathens. Now, at the time when you updated to Jerusalem in those times, really it was the ones that were being vexed were the Israelites that were from the southern kingdom, even though you had a handful of the ones from the northern kingdom. All right? But it was really a vexation going back and forth between the southern kingdom, because the majority of those Israelite foreigners back then were all from the southern kingdom, because the northern kingdom had come already to this side of the world. but they were vexing them in the sense of, not allowing them to return back to their nationality, calling them heathens, and so on and so forth. All right, so going back, just so you can understand, Romans 11:1, I say then, had the Most High cast away his people, the Most High forbid, for I also am an Israelite, which proves that the Lord's people are the Israelites. Of the seed of Abraham, which is the father of the promise, the head father or top father of the promise, of the tribe of Benjamin. Because at one point, Judah didn't even accept, Benjamin, like they don't do today. You had, not that he didn't accept the other tribes, but you had at one point High Priest Yeshua, which was his title, saying that the house of David was only the Judites, which is not the case. That's not true at all. Because King David ruled over the whole nation, not just over Judah, even though he was a Judite king. So now it says, the Most High have not cast away his people, which he foreknew. Because this is the nation that the Lord chose. What one nation is like unto thee, O Israel? What ye not, what the scripture saith of Elias, how he maketh intercession to the Most High against Israel, saying, Lord, they have killed thy prophets and digged down thine altars, and I am left alone, and they seek my life. So this is akin to the Jews in Jerusalem persecuting the other tribes and saying it was just them, and everybody else is gone. Just like Elijah thought that he was the last prophet because Jezebel was on a rampage killing off all the prophets back then. But there were some prophets that were protected and put away, by the Lord. They were protected back then. Just like the Israelite foreigners that were a part of the elect were protected back then. Now, before we get any deeper into this, I want to just shed some light on the book of Romans itself. When you go back to the beginning of the book of Romans, Romans chapter 1, you have to go by what the contract says. This is an epistle, which is another name for a letter. When you write a letter is something that's personalized to somebody. This is why you put, to whom it may concern, or you may put to so-and-so and such. And every word after that, this is to, let's say you say this is to James, or this is to John, right? Every other words after that apply to or are for the hearing or receiving of that person, James or John, or whoever the letter was addressed to. When we go back to the first chapter of Romans, the 1:1, it says, Paul, a servant of Yahawashi, called to be an apostle, separated unto the gospel of the Most High, because he was a chosen vessel, which he had promised afore by his prophets in the Holy Scriptures, which goes back to the Old Testament, which the prophets spoke about the Messiah, Yahawashi, which was the main topic that the Apostle Paul was teaching about, right? We jump down to the 7th verse. It says, to all that be in Rome, beloved of the Most High. So these people that are in Rome, which are beloved of the Most High, are what? Called to be who? Saints. So your next question should be, who are the saints? When we go to the book of Psalms 147, 19 and 20, it says, he showeth his word unto Jacob, his statutes. And, matter of fact, I'm sorry. Let's go to the 148th chapter, and then we could come back. 148 and 13. Let them praise the name of Yahawah Bashem Yahawashi, for his name alone is excellent. Not those other names. The name of Yahawah alone is excellent. His glory is above the earth and heaven. He also exalted the horn of his people, or the power of his people, the praise of all his saints, which are his people, even of the children of Israel. So who are the saints? The children of Israel, or people near unto him. Praise ye the Lord. So what made the nation of Israel near unto Yahawah? The law, statutes, and commandments which he used to join the Israelites to himself and set up a priesthood from the tribe of Levi, which goes back to the Hebrew word LAWAYA, which means joined to me. This is how the Most High joined the Israelites to himself, by the law, statutes, and commandments, and by the priesthood. Okay? So when we go back to Psalms 147 chapter and the 19th verse, he showeth his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel, to the Israelites. What are his words? The law, statutes, and commandments. Everything that you see written from Genesis all the way up to Malachi and everything in between, including the Apocrypha. Right? He have not dealt so with any nation. So the other nations did not receive the law, statutes, and commandments. They were not joined to the covenant. So if they were not joined to the covenant, they have nothing to do to receive the gospel or the good news to be brought back into the good graces of the Most High. And it's just that simple when you understand that. But when you go and you cherry pick, as they accuse us of doing, they cherry pick certain scriptures like the book of Ephesians 2 or Galatians, the 3rd chapter, where it speaks about the Gentiles without the proper understanding. Of course you're going to be able to fit everybody in there until you go back and examine what the scriptures say concerning these Gentiles and who they are. So it says, he hath not dealt so with any nation, and as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye the Lord Yahawah B'Shem Yahawashi, because he did not deal with the other nations like he deals with the nation of Israel. So moving along, back in Romans 11:4 now, but what saith the answer of the Most High unto him? I have reserved to myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to Baal. Now the word 7,000, 70, it all 700, it all represents completion. All right. So the 7,000 men is not actually 7,000 men. It's actually a complete set of men, which are the teachers, right, who have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal. So back then, when the prophet Elijah was on the scene, you had, a complete amount of men that were prophets that did not bow to the knee to Baal. They remained faithful to Yahawah B'Shem Yahawashi, no matter what they actually went through. Right? So he's using that as an example of the elect from among the Jews, the ones that knew that they were Israelites, and from among the Israelite foreigners. So it says, even so then at this present time also there is a remnant according to the election of grace. And who are the remnant? Let's go from there. Let's go to the book of Isaiah, chapter 10 and verse 20. A remnant will return. A remnant from who? From all nations? Well, let's find out. And it shall come to pass in that day that the remnant of who? Israel. Which are who? The elect. And such as are escaped of the house of Jacob. So if it pertains to other nations, it should say so, right? Shall no more again stay upon them that smote them. Who smote them? Well, it depends on what empire we're talking about. Today, we're dealing with the Edomites. In the past, we were dealing with the Edomites under the Romans. Before that, we were dealing with the Edomites under the Greeks. Before that, we were dealing with the Medo-Persian Empire. Before that, we were dealing with the Babylonian Empire. Before that, the Assyrian Empire, so on and so forth. So in this time, the remnant of Israel and the ones that are escaped out of the house of Jacob are not going to rely or count on Esau for anything, but shall stay upon the Lord Yahawah B'Shem Yahawashi, the Holy One of Israel, in truth, because the truth is what's going to make us free. All right? The remnant shall return. Return to who? To the Most High. The word return is the word shawab. All right? When you go into the New Testament, right, different scriptures, it speaks about the ministry of reconciliation. It speaks about being reconciled. When you look at the word reconciled, the word reconcile means to be brought back into the good graces or back into the favor or back into the friendship of someone. So you have two friends. They're best friends. Everywhere you see one, you see the other. They have a fallout. Something happened. One offended the other, however the case may be, and they parted ways. 40 years go by, and they still have not, reconciled back to each other. Then one day they come together, something happens, they figure out what happened, so on and so forth, and then they come to the conclusion that what happened 40 years ago that separated them all that time was nothing but BS, or that one of them say, you know what, I forgive you, don't worry about that. And what happens at that point, they become friends again. And that's what the Heavenly Father did when he sent his son Yahawashi on the earth 2,000 years ago, to make friends again with the nation of Israel, especially with the elect, because the ones that are not part of the elect will not make it, but they'll come back in the kingdom through the ones that make it. So there was a friendship bonded back together between the Heavenly Father and us, the Israelites, through the sacrifice of Yahawashi. If you don't understand that, you're going to miss the whole picture. And this is what them wacky-tacky Christians do not want to deal with. This is why you have individuals like Volcam Malone talking about, supersessionism, replacement theology, supersessionism, which is the replacement of the whole nation of Israel to only bring in the body of believers, which includes all nations. Because the only way that raggedy-ass doctrine can make sense is if you remove the nation of Israel to insert all other nations. Because when you go and you search throughout the whole book, from Genesis all the way up, or everything in between, all you're going to find out are the records of the blessings that the Lord gave to the nation of Israel, and how they would fall away. They would be under curses, but they would be reconciled again by the Messiah, Yahawashi. So it says, the remnant shall return, even the remnant of Jacob, unto the mighty power. And how did that happen? By Yahawashi. For though thy people be Israel be as the sand of the sea, yet a remnant of them shall return, which are the elect. The consumption decree shall overflow with righteousness, right? Because you're going to have the elect that are going to come back to righteousness. For the Lord Yahawah, power of hosts, shall make a consumption even determined in the midst of all the land. All right. So let's go back, to the book of Romans, chapter 1, verse 7. To all that be in Rome, this is a letter addressed to all that be in Rome. So is it talking about everybody? Beloved of the Most High, called to be saints. And we went to Psalms 147 chapter to prove that the saints are the Israelites. Now, if you negate that, if you don't accept that, then you're taken away from the book, which means you have to add on to the book, which means the Lord is going to destroy you. Grace to you and peace from the power, our Father, and the Lord Yahawashi. And that's it. Because that peace was what? Yahawashi becoming the peace maker between the Heavenly Father and himself. And the nation of Israel. That's why he's also known as what? The Prince of Peace. So going back to Romans 11, knowing that, Romans 11 and 5, even so then at this present time also there is a remnant according to the election of grace. And if by grace, then it is no more of works. Otherwise grace is no more grace, but if it be of works, then it is no more grace. Otherwise work is no more work. So in other words, it's by grace, not by the works, because the Jews in Jerusalem that knew they were Israelites were trying to receive the salvation of the kingdom of heaven by doing the works of the law, which you cannot do because we are imperfect creatures in imperfect bodies in an imperfect world. All right. Verse 7. What then? Israel hath not obtained that which he seeketh for. So the ones that knew that they were Israelites didn't obtain what they were seeking for, which is what? The truth. Salvation. But the election have obtained it, and the rest were blinded. So the ones that were elected among them, they obtained it because they had something in them that would make them believe in Yahawashi. And the rest were blinded, meaning the majority of those Israelites back then were blinded to the Messiah. That's why they didn't accept him. According as it is written, the Most High hath given them the spirit of slumber, eyes that they should not see, and ears that they should not hear, unto this day. Right. And to this day, when this was written, 2,000 years ago or so, and even unto this very day, this is happening. And you brothers out there that are teachers, you've seen this, you've witnessed this time and time again. How you'll break something down and people just won't get it. Because the Lord blinded them. It says, and David saith, let their table be made a snare, because this was a curse that was put on them long ago. And what is a table? The table is what you would do to, you could say like the altar, to come and worship before the Father. Let that be a snare or a trap unto them. So no matter how much they seek the Lord and talk about the Lord and read the scriptures or whatever the case may be, they will never come to the knowledge of the truth. It says, and a trap, and a stumbling block, and a recompense unto them, right? Because that would be the payback for them being rebellious and wicked. Let their eyes be darkened that they may not see, and bow down their back always. So they'll never come to this because they're not part of the elect. But now when the kingdom is established, they will come back. It says, I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? The Most High forbid. So these Israelites that fell or stumbled, did they fall? That they couldn't rise up no more? No, the Most High forbid. Why? Because they are all a part of the seed of the nation of Israel, and they are part of the seed of the promise. The Apostle Paul made that clear. This is why this right here is so beautiful. Romans chapter 4 and 16. Therefore it is of faith, meaning to get to this truth, to the knowledge, to receive salvation is solely based on faith, even though you still do the works as a symbol of your belief, because faith without works is dead. But it can't be done through work alone. You know, and you can have all the belief in the world, but if you don't put your foot forward and start doing something about it, guess what? You're not going to be delivered. It says that it might be by grace, to the end the promise of who? That was made to Abraham might be sure to all the seed. So all of the nation of Israel will be saved. And as we read on in Romans 11, it explains that. All right. So it says, Romans 11:11. I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? But the Most High forbid. But rather through their fall, salvation is come unto the Gentiles, or the Israelite foreigners, the ones that didn't know that they were Israelite foreigners. And this is why they had to be grafted in. And you have to understand the concept of grafting in. You know, it says, for to provoke them to jealousy. Provoke who to jealousy? The ones that knew that they were Israelites. That's why when we go to the book of Acts 13, this was the Apostle Paul speak, because the Apostle Paul, believe it or not, he wanted to go and teach, you know, the Jews, the ones that knew the law, because he was convinced in his mind that, yo, I know the law backward and forward. I know that if, you know, if I get to them, I could break it down to them and they will accept it, because I know how to work it. I know how to show them, you know, how, you know, that the Lord, the Messiah came through. And they would believe me. But the Lord didn't want him to do that. That's why he was frustrated, you know, when he would go and teach and they wouldn't believe him. Because the Lord had a better purpose for him. And that was to go teach the Israelite foreigners, because he was better equipped. Because of his knowledge of the Greek and his knowledge of the history, his knowledge of, you know, the gladiatorial games and, you know, those different games back then. He was acquainted with poetry, you know, so on and so forth. So when we go to Acts 13, right, I wanted to start up above that a little bit, but I'm going to have to. Acts 13 and 38. Be it known unto you, therefore, men and brethren, that through this man is preached unto you the forgiveness of sins, which is Yahawashi. And what is sin? When you go to, I believe that's 1 John 3 and 4, sin is pretty much is the transgression of the law or the breaking of the law. And all you have to do is go back to Psalms 147 chapter. The law was only given to the nation of Israel. So therefore the sinners that are going to be brought back or forgiven are the Israelites. And by him all that believe are justified from all things from which you could not be justified by the law of Moses. Right. Because by the law of Moses was the knowledge of sin. And being in this flesh, we couldn't keep it perfect. Because even the wicked thought is evil. When you read the book of Proverbs, it tell you that. The thought of wickedness is sin or something like that. Beware therefore lest that come upon you, which is spoken of in the prophets. What prophet is speaking about? Speaking about Habakkuk. Behold, ye despisers and wonder. This is to the ones that knew that they were Israelites. And perish. For I work a work in your days, a work which you shall in no wise believe, though a man declare it unto you. And what is this work that he would work? That he would bring back the Israelite foreigners from that dead state, from that, for lack of better words, from that savage state. Bring them back from that gone state, from that unclean state. And how did they become unclean? By worshiping the idols of the nations and therefore worshiping their customs and so on and so forth. All right? And when the Jews were gone out of the synagogue, the Gentiles or the Israelite foreigners besought that these words might be preached to them the next Sabbath. Why? Because they were also Israelites. And they were intrigued because this word, you know, resonated with them. But the problem was that they were, you know, gone, into the philosophies of the other nations. But then the ones that were around Jerusalem, they started to hear the message and they started to be drawn to the message. It says, now when the congregation was broken up, meaning everybody went home, many of the Jews and religious proselytes followed Paul and Barnabas, because you had some Jews and some religious proselytes that believed. Now the religious proselytes were ones that were following behind the Sanhedrin, which was the hierarchy of the council of the Pharisees, Sadducees, lawyers, scribes, so on and so forth, right? And they converted from following that to believing in the Yahawashi and following Yahawashi. That's what it means by the religious proselytes or the proselytes. All right? They followed Paul and Barnabas, who speaking to them persuaded them to continue in the grace of the Most High. So look, just keep on, following the Lord, So, and the next Sabbath day, which is a week later, came almost a whole city together to hear the word of the Most High. But when the Jews saw the multitudes of who? Of these Israelite foreigners, they were filled with what? With envy, and spake against those things which were spoken by Paul, contradicting and blaspheming. And the apostle Paul and the apostle Barnabas told him, look, we were trying to break it down to you, but you didn't want it. So since you didn't want it, guess what? This message it doesn't go out void, so it's going to go to the Israelite foreigners. So that provoked them to envy. Just like we read in the book of Romans 11:11, I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? The Most High forbid, meaning the Jews that knew they were Israelites. But rather through their fall, because they didn't believe, salvation is come unto the Gentiles or the Israelite foreigners, for to provoke them, the Jews, to jealousy. And that's exactly what we read in the book of Acts 13. All right? Now, if the fall of them, of the ones that knew they were Israelites, be the riches of the world. Now, back in the days, this used to be broken down that when we as a nation fell, all nations became rich, monetarily. Substance, and that's not the case. These riches right here, right, go into this knowledge, this wisdom, this understanding. Romans 11:33. Oh, the depths of the riches, both of the wisdom and knowledge of the Most High. How unsearchable are his judgments and his ways past finding out. So when the Israelites that knew that they were Israelites fell away, right? Now if the fall of them be the riches of the world, and the diminishing of them the riches of the Gentiles, how much more their fullness? All right, so let's break this down. The riches of the world. When you look up that word world, the word there is cosmos. The word cosmos is not talking about the whole entire world. And this is why you have to go back to the origin of these words. You can't just break it down into English. You have to go back to the original writing of it, whether it was a Hebrew or whether it was Greek, to get a better understanding. The word cosmos is right here, an apt and harmonious arrangement or constitution, order, government. So pretty much it's an organization. All right? Now, when you read through some of these, it tells you the whole, everybody. That's not what it's talking about. It's talking about those that are a part of the nation of Israel. Now, you can have a cosmos among, the animals. You can have a cat cosmos. You can have a dog cosmos, which is a world of dogs or a world of cats or a world of whatever. But the cosmos that the Lord is speaking about in the scriptures is the nation of Israel, which goes back to an arrangement, because these were all a part of that arrangement that the Most High made at the beginning through the contract, which are the laws, statutes, and commandments, the history, so on and so forth, that's written in the Old Testament. Today, the New Testament also. So going back to Romans 11:12, now if the fall of them, the Israelites, be the riches of the world, right, the Israelite foreigners, because now it's open to the rest of the Israelites that were scattered. And the diminishing of them, the riches of the Gentiles or the Israelite foreigners, how much more their fullness, because they fell because of unbelief, as we read further down. The Israelite foreigners came in because of faith. So if those same ones that fell away because of unbelief, if they turn and repent and come back to the Father, then they'll also be brought back in to the fold, because they were originally there in the beginning. For I spake to you Gentiles or Israelite foreigners, and as much as I am the apostle of the Gentiles or Israelite foreigners, I magnify mine office, because that was his job, to teach the Israelite foreigners. Let's go from there to Galatians, just to show you that real quick. 2 and 8. For he that wrought effectually in Peter to the apostleship of the circumcision, the same was mighty in me toward the Gentiles or the Israelite foreigners. And it says, and when James, Cephas, and John, which were the head disciples, apostles, who seemed to be pillars, perceived the grace that was given unto me, they gave to me and Barnabas the right hands of fellowship, that we should go unto the heathen or the Israelite foreigners, and they unto the circumcision, the ones that knew that they were Israelites, because that's how the Lord set it up. All right, so going back to Romans 11:14, if by any means I may provoke to emulation them which are my flesh. So by going to these Israelite foreigners, magnifying my office to them, and they seeing that I'm a Jew or Israelite, that would make them emulate what I'm doing, make them want to get involved, because the word emulation means to copy. Let's go to emulation. Let's see what it says here for emulation. Lo'al. That's how you say it. To provoke to jealousy or rivalry, to provoke to anger, right? To emulate. You know, and that also goes hand in hand with the word jealousy. But when you look up the word emulate or emulation, right? It says effort to match or surpass a person or achievement, typically by imitation. See? So to provoke them to this. So if by any means I may provoke to emulation them which are my flesh, and might save some of them, because you had an election among them, and they would receive. That's why you had those that, you know, that came back to the Apostle Paul and the Apostle Barnabas after the first week when he spoke to the Jews and to the Israelite foreigners. For if the casting away of them, the Israelites that knew that they were Israelites, be the reconciling of the world, or the Israelite foreigners, why? Because they were scattered. What shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead? Because they walked outside. Matter of fact, let's get that. Let's go to Proverbs 21. And you know, there's many brothers who have many different precepts they go to break this down. Proverbs 21:16. The man that wandereth out of the way of understanding shall remain in the congregation of the dead. So what happens if they're given back the light? They'll come back into the congregation of the living. And that's what the Apostle Paul is saying here. That they'll come back and they'll be restored back to life again. For if the first fruit be holy, which the first fruit represents, you know, the Israelites that knew that they were Israelites in Jerusalem. Let me turn this light on. All right. And when you go deeper, the first fruits are the elect. But dealing with the falling away of the Israelites that knew that they were Israelites. For if the first fruits be holy, the lump is also holy. And if the root be holy, so are the branches. So all of those that were in Jerusalem that knew they were either Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, and you had a handful of the other tribes, if they are the natural branches, they're going to come back anyway, eventually. All right? Why? Because they come from that lump. It says, and if some of the branches be broken off, and thou being a wild olive tree, were grafted in among them, and with them partakers of the root and fatness of the olive tree. So we have to break this down, because this says a whole lot. So let's deal with the first part. And if some of the branches be broken off, where in the scriptures does it identify the other nations? Listen good. Where in the scriptures does it identify the other nations with being an olive tree? Where? But when we go back to Jeremiah chapter 11, and verse 14, therefore pray not for this people, the Israelites, neither lift up a cry or prayer for them, for I will not hear them in the time that they cry unto me for their trouble. What hath my beloved to do in mine house, seeing she hath wrought lewdness with many? Right, because the nation of Israel went off by worshiping the idols of the other nations. This is why the Lord separated us, cast us off. And the holy flesh is passed from thee. So if the holy flesh is passed from thee, that makes you what? A heathen. This is why we read earlier in Hosea. Let's go to Hosea chapter 8 again. And verse 8, Israel is swallowed up. Swallowed up by what? By the worshiping of these different idols. Now shall they be, and also by being taken down by the nations. Now shall they be among the Gentiles as a vessel wherein is no pleasure. So there's just like a regular common individual. You know, the holy flesh has passed from you. Jeremiah 11:15. What hath my beloved to do in mine house, seeing she hath wrought lewdness with many, and the holy flesh is passed from thee? When thou doest evil, then thou rejoicest. Right, because Jake was, pickled in idol worship back then. Right? Now here's the point. The Lord called thy name, you Israelites, a green olive tree, fair and of goodly fruits. With the noise of a great tumult he hath kindled fire upon it, and the branches of it are broken. You see? And that's how the Israelite foreigners came back into the fold. Because the other nations were never called a green olive tree. And this is why the Lord called Israel, let's go to it. Jeremiah 2 and verse 21, just the point. Yet had I matter of fact, I started at 20. For of old time I have broken thy yoke, when we went into captivity under the other nations, and burst thy bands. And thou saidest, I will not transgress. When upon every high hill and under every green tree thou wanderest, playing the harlot, worshiping these damn idols. Yet I had planted thee a noble vine. So we were a noble vine planted by the Lord. Wholly a right seed. The whole nation was given the law, statutes, and commandments. And we were cultured properly. We were nourished properly. When you read Isaiah the 5th chapter, it tells you that, that the Lord did everything possible, for the nation of Israel to be, separated from the other nations. It says, how then art thou turned into the degenerate plant of a strange vine unto me? So you became strange. This is why in the New Testament, those that were following the customs of the nations and worshiping their idols were considered to be a wild olive tree. You dig? So let's go back. And if some of the branches be broken off, and thou being a wild olive tree were grafted in among them. So the wild olive tree, which you became strange, Israelite foreigners, you were grafted in among the ones that knew that they were Jews. Now check this out. When you look up that word grafted, right? The word grafted is let me read it over here. Ekkentrizo. To cut into for the sake of inserting a what? Scion. To inoculate and graft in. So you would take a tree, you would take a branch from another tree of the same type, and you would take that branch and cut it into the original, the other tree, and eventually that would connect and it would grow. But it would have to be of that same particular tree. So when we look up this word Zion, right? Check this out. For those of you that don't know about this. Right? Check it out. A scion is descendant, child especially. A descendant of a wealthy, aristocratic, or influential family. Scion. A descendant, heir, or young member of a family. A shoot or twig twig, branch of a plant used to form a graft. So in order for you to be grafted into this tree, you have to be a part of that tree in the first place when you understand the grafting process. All right? Yeah, they go off here. All right, so let's go back. Oh, let's deal with the word wild olive tree. I got little information that I got earlier. The word wild olive tree is agri el ahios. All right, mouthful. Of or belonging to the oleaster or wild olive. The oleaster wild olive tree. So because it's a wild olive tree, does it mean that it's still not an olive? No, it's still an olive. Just because those Israelites were being called Gentiles, did that not make them Israelites? No, they're still Israelites. Now, check this out. Let me move this over to here. This is a wild olive tree, right? Which you've seen at the beginning of the lesson, right? That's a wild olive tree there. You have trees, olive trees, and you have wild olive trees, right? Now check this out. I put this in the description box for those of you that would like to read more of it. This is Acebuches de El Rocío, which these are trees from the ancient world that are still in Spain. Much more than just wild olive trees. Tucked away just outside of Doñana Natural Park in Huelva, Spain, a small grove of wild olive trees has survived for centuries. Even as the landscape around it underwent radical transformation, the Acebuches de El Rocío are a group of 15 ancient wild olive trees located in Plaza Acebuchal in the village of El Rocío. Wild olive trees, acebuches in Spanish, are native to the Iberian Peninsula. Now, the Iberian Peninsula goes back into the Hebrew, but that's another lesson. And despite their humble reputation, they are much more than just uncultivated olives. So they are olives, but they are uncultivated olives. Well, now, what does it mean to be uncultivated? Of land not used for growing crops. Right, of a person not highly educated or socially adept, because the Israelite foreigners were unfamiliar to the practice of keeping the laws. This is why it was said that not to bother them. You know, when we go to Ephesians, which Lord's will, I could do a lesson on Ephesians, the 2nd chapter, because this is another one of those chapters that these wacky tacky Christians take out of context. Ephesians 2:11. Wherefore remember that you, being in time past Gentiles in the flesh, so you Israelite foreigners were acting like the Gentiles in the flesh, because vocab try to use it. It says in the flesh. That means that they were born that way. Yeah, they were born that way because that's what their parents taught them, and their parents' parents taught them. So they were taught the way of the Greeks. They didn't circumcise themselves. They spoke the Greek language. They ate Greek foods, which a lot of those dishes were made with pork, so on and so forth. That's why it says that they were Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision, right, which means like heathens, uncircumcised, by that which is called the circumcision of the Jews in the flesh made by hand. So the Jews in Jerusalem call these Israelite foreigners uncircumcised. Why? That at that time you were without Yahawashi, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel. So you were unfamiliar with these ways, because going back to the time when Antiochus Epiphanes was on the scene, after about 168 BC or so, your parents decided that they wanted to be Greeks and follow the Greek customs. So they taught their children to be Greeks, and they taught their children, and so on and so forth, all the way up until the time that Yahawashi was on the scene, because these Israelite foreigners were descendants of those that followed the Greek customs back during the time of the Greek Empire. Because now we're in the Roman Empire. So it says that being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel. So you were aliens from your own customs. That's why you don't know to circumcise yourself. That's why you don't know not to do this. That's why you don't know not to do that. That's why you don't know how to keep the Sabbath. You see? That's why you don't know about the Passover. That's why you don't know the difference between clean foods and unclean foods. Because you were brought up in that custom all the way back from the time you were born and even further back. And strangers from the covenants of promise. When you go back to the covenants of promise, the covenants of promise were only given to the nation of Israel. Let's go to that real quick. We'll go to the book of, you know what? Let's just go to Jeremiah. Let's go all the way back to the way back in time. Well, why are you going to the Old Testament? Well, why did the Apostle Paul go to the Old Testament? Why did Yahawashi go to the Old Testament? Jeremiah 31:31. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord Yahawah, that I will make a new covenant. So this will be a second one. You had the first one. Now this is the second one. With the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. Not the other nations. Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers, which goes back to the first covenant, in the day that I took them out of the land by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they break. This is why there had to be a second covenant, although I was an husband unto them, saith the Lord Yahawah Bashem Yahawashi. Salakia, scripture just came to mind. Let me just get that. All right. Boom. It says, Jeremiah 31:33. But this shall be the covenant. Nope. Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they break, although I was an husband unto them, saith the Lord Yahawah Bashem Yahawashi. But this shall be the covenant, or the second one, that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, nothing to do with the other nations, saith the Lord. I will put my laws in their inward parts and write it in their hearts, and they will be their power, and they shall be my people. So this is the covenant, or the covenants, that the Lord made with the nation of Israel. It said Judah and Israel. Why? Because the nation was split into two. You have to go into that history in order to understand that the nation of Israel was split into two nations. All right, the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. All right, so this covenant, or these covenants, were only to the nation of Israel. So the Apostle Paul was telling them that these Israelite foreigners that were being called heathens or uncircumcised by the ones that were circumcised, or the Jews, they were being called heathens because they were unfamiliar with their customs. Ephesians 2:12, that at that time you were without Yahawashi, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel. The commonwealth of Israel belongs only to Israel. And you are Israelites also. Let's go to commonwealth. The word for commonwealth is politia, which goes back to the word city or citizen. So the commonwealth of Israel is the citizenship of Israel. So why were you foreign to being citizens of Israel? Because you fell away. You fell away, brother. Brother, you fell out the truth, brother. An inside joke. Because you fell away. That's why. So it says the administration of civil affairs, a state of or commonwealth, citizenship, the rights of a citizen. So you lost those rights. You lost those rights because you fell away. All right. So that at that time you were without Yahawashi, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel, which belongs to you because you are Israelites, and strangers from the covenants of promise. The covenants of promise go back to the Israelites. We just showed you that. Having no hope and without the Most High in the world. But now in Yahawashi, you who sometimes were far off are made nigh by the blood of Yahawashi, because that is a part of the second covenant. The first covenant was cemented by the blood of oxen. The second covenant was cemented by the blood of Yahawashi. All right? And that's what the message is, the good news, the gospel. All right? And Lord's will, I could hit Ephesians 2 another time. So let's go back to what we just had, which is grafted. Other belong to the oleaster or wild olive tree, the oleaster wild olive tree, right? We read about the uncultivated olives that were called wild olive trees. We looked at uncultivated, of land not used for growing crops. In other words, the land is there. It's arable land. It has, all the makings, for to be able to grow and be planted, but there's nothing there. It's like wasted land. Of a person not highly educated or socially adept. Why? Because you Israelite foreigners fell away from your commonwealth. All right. Now, let's go to the book of Hosea, chapter 10. And the Lord's will, I'm going to try to see if I can get through this chapter. Hit a few points. Bear with me 1 second. All right, let's deal with this. Hosea chapter 10, verse 1. Let me take a quick sip of this waters. All right. Hosea 10 and 1. It says here, retribution for Israel's sin. Right? Israel is an empty vine. All right? Empty is just that, empty. Let's go to that word empty. Just trying to go through some of these words. The word is bakwak. To empty, lay waste, to make void. To be empty, to empty out, devastate. So they were made void. All right? They were fruitless. All right? Let's go back. Let's see what else we got. Israel is an empty vine. Notice it keeps making reference to vine. It keeps making reference to branches, trees, roots. It says, he bringeth forth fruit unto himself according to the multitude of his fruit. He hath increased the altars. Now, what are the altars? These particular altars are the ones that they use for worshiping the different idols. Let's go real quick to, let me bring this up here. Let's go real quick to, let me see, altars. Just had a precept that came to mind. Worshiping these different idols. Okay, I can't think of the scripture right now. If it comes back to me, I'll go to it. He bringeth forth fruit unto himself according to the multitude of his fruit. He hath increased the altars. According to the goodness of the land, they have made goodly images. Right, so this is how they worship the idols. Their heart is divided. Now shall they be found faulty. Right, because they're not following the Lord 100%. This is why they fell. He shall break down their altars, meaning your different, devotions and actual altars, which were the devotions to your false gods. He shall spoil their images. For now they shall say, we have no king, because we fear not the Lord. What then should a king do to us? Right, and that king was King Hosea. All right, this is the king, the Ephraimite king that was on the throne when Shalmaneser V and the Assyrian army came and took Israel down. They have spoken words, swearing falsely and making a covenant. Thus judgment springeth up as hemlock in the furrows of the field. So they have spoken words, swearing falsely and making a covenant. In other words, the covenant that they made with the nations was in worshiping their idols in the fashion that they did. Just like our forefathers made a covenant with the Father, and he gave us the instructions on how to worship him. All right, so it says, thus judgment springeth up as hemlock. Hemlock is poisonous. All right. Let's go to the word hemlock. The word hemlock is ra'ash, which the root word is head or chief. But here's gall, venom, bitter, poisonous. Because this is what made pretty much made us poisonous and got us kicked out of the land. All right. It says, and now let's see. Do I have that? Let's go to the word hemlock so you can see. Poison hemlock is a widespread toxic biennial plant in the carrot family, often found in open sunny areas, fields, vacant lots, and roadsides. Eating even a small amount of any part of this plant can kill people, livestock, and wildlife. You see? So pretty much when Israel partook in those customs of the nations and worshiping their idols, that became a poison that separated Israel from the Most High. Okay? Because it's given it to you in the form of planting. All right? This is a parabolic talk. All right? In the form of planting. All right? I'm sorry. Let's just bring this forward. It says, in furrows of the field. Now, when you look up this word furrows, thalam, and we can show you a furrow. It doesn't really say much. Right here it says furrow or ridge. All right. A furrow, right, is a long, narrow trench made in the ground by a plow, especially for planting seeds or for irrigation. And when you see a field or a farm, and you see those tractors, they do it by tractor now. Back then they did it with ox and the actual plow. And you see the tractor and it has that thing in the back of it, that's a plow. And what it's doing is making grooves in the ground, which are called furrows. And those grooves in the ground are breaking up the soil. And then after they break up the soil, then you would take the seed and you would plant it in that open thing. And then, you will go through the whole process of seeding it and, covering it up or whatever the case may be in order so that seed can take root. And then whatever you plant there can grow, whether it's carrots, whether it's tomatoes, whether it's cucumbers, peppers, whatever it may be. All right. So that's akin to Israel's brain. They're like empty furrows out there. Okay. Let's move on. Going back. Right, and it says, springeth up as hemlocks in the furrows of the field. The field is the world. You can go to Matthew 13 to read about that. Matthew 13, and I believe it's around 38. The inhabitants of Samaria, which was the northern kingdom, shall fear because of the calves of Bethaven, because they were worshiping the heathens, gods. For the people thereof shall mourn over it, and the priests thereof that rejoice on it. Because you had a priesthood that was doing that also. Just like you had during the time of the Maccabees. You had Israelites that were actually, performing the sacrilege or sacrifice of these heathens. You actually had Israelites that were performing the duties of these heathens on the altar, these wicked duties. For the glory thereof, because it is departed from it. So the glory departed from Israel. That's why we fell as a nation. That's why we became unclean. That's why we became heathens. It says, it shall be also carried unto Assyria for a present to King Jareb. Ephraim shall receive shame, and Israel shall be ashamed of his own counsel, because the nation, the tribe of, or the kingdom of the north, or the kingdom of Ephraim fell. All right. To our forefathers' own dismay. As for Samaria, her king is cut off as the foam upon the water, right? Because you see when the waves crash against the stone, you see the foam, then that foam disappears. Well, that's how the king of Samaria, which was Hosea, disappeared. He was on the throne one day, the next day he was off. The high place is also Aven. The sin of Israel shall be destroyed. The thorn and the thistle shall come up on their altars. What are the altars? The place of our worship. Now, what do thorns and thistle represent? Well, you have a field cultivated with good stuff, flowers, vegetation, and you have thorns and thistles or weeds that grow up and choke the original plant. So if you don't pull those weeds out, they're going to destroy the whole crop. What does thistle mean in the Bible? Desolation. And that's what happened. We were kicked out of that land. The Bible refers to the thistles and prickles as a symbol of desolation or wilderness. And that's pretty much the main point. They are one of the most common wildflowers in Israel, rapid taking over any open patch of wasteland and untended meadows. And that's what happened to Israel. We weren't following the law, statutes, and commandments of the Lord. He allowed he allowed those actions to choke us out, so to speak, and the nations came in and took us away. And to this very day, to this day, we're in that predicament. But the Lord is bringing back the elect of the nation of Israel. All right. So it says, the thorns and thistles shall come up on their altars, which is the place of worship, and and that's pretty much today represents these churches. Because when you go to these churches, Jake churches or whatever tribe, that's all nothing but thorns and thistles growing up there. That's nothing but poison. And they shall say to the mountains, cover us, and to the hills, fall on us. Yeah, because that's where they worship, their gods also. O Israel, thou hast sinned from the days of Gibeah. Now the days of Gibeah go back to the time when, the Levite priest had his woman, his concubine, and those wicked Judas blood goats, those Benjaminites, came and pretty much they wanted to have sex with him, and he put his concubine out, and they took the concubine and abused her all night, and then she came back and just dropped dead the next day. So this is what the Lord's speaking about. There they stood. The battle in Gibeah against the children of iniquity did not overtake them. Right, dealing with Benjamin at that time. It is in my desire that I should chastise them, and the people shall be gathered against them when they shall bind themselves in two furrows. Why? Because you had both kingdoms, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. Those are the two furrows, and the seed that's supposed to go in those furrows is the word of the Most High. Let's get that real quick. All right, let's go to Luke chapter 8. And once we break this down, I may have to come back to do the part 2 because this is getting long. This is getting ridiculous. Inside joke. Luke chapter 8 and verse 11. Now the parable is this: the seed is the word of the Most High. All right. So the furrows, the two furrows, is the nation, the kingdom of Israel, the kingdom of Judah, and the kingdom of Israel. And Ephraim is as an heifer that is taught, and loveth to tread out the corn. But I pass over upon her fair neck, and I will make Ephraim to ride. Judah shall plow, see? And Jacob shall break his clods, because the Lord is going to bring the nation back together. So Judah is the head tribe. They're going to be the ones that plow. And then Jacob, or the northern kingdom, is going to break up his clods. What are the clods? Clods are big clumps of sand, big clumps of dirt or clay that get clumped up together, and you have to break it up in order to be able to plant your seed. Clod, a lump of earth or clay. Then it says a stupid person, often used as a general term of abuse. All right. Let's look up the word clods. And we'll read the verse in Romans 11, and we'll see what verse we left off at, and then we'll come back, Lord's will, to do the second part of this. The word clod. Clods. Shaddad. The word shaddad to harrow. All right. Now, what is a harrow? All right. I didn't look up. I thought I had harrow on here. Just bear with me 1 second. Right. Because pretty much the harrow means to break up, that break up that that those clumps. All right, harrow. Harrow definition: an implement consisting of a heavy frame set with teeth or tines, which is dragged over plowed land to break up clods, remove weeds, and cover seed. Yeah, because you had to cover the seed, otherwise the birds will come and eat it. Like when you plant grass, the way you plant it is, once you break everything up and you throw the seeds, the grass seeds in there, you would usually cover it with something, and you would cover it like with hay, so that the birds couldn't get to the seeds, but the water could still go through the hay and water that ground so it can grow the grass. All right. So break clods. How do you break up clods? First, I remove the grass. Well, we already got the point. They had them, back then they had the actual plows and they would rip through them. Today they have machinery. All right. So let's go back. Now verse 12. Sow to yourselves in righteousness, right? Because now that the ground, that demonic ground was broken up, that desolate ground was broken up. Now it's time to sow it with the right seed, with the word of Yahawah B'Shem Yahawashi. And this is what the Apostle Paul was doing with those Israelite foreigners. He was breaking up that desolate mind state that they had and re-nourishing it, planting the seed of the Most High, Yahawah B'Shem Yahawashi, into their hearts to make them to come back, to that beautiful, elegant, noble vine that they used to be at one time. That olive tree, that beautiful olive tree. Sow to yourselves in righteousness, reap in mercy. Break up your fallow ground, right? Break it up. For it is time to seek the Lord Yahawah B'Shem Yahawashi till he come and rain righteousness upon you. Because the rain of the Lord is what gives the increase. The Apostle Paul said he planted, Apollos watered, but the Most High gave the increase. You have plowed wickedness, you have reaped iniquity, you have eaten the fruit of lies. See, and this is what made you foreign, what made you strange, what made you to be hated and looked down upon by the Jews in Jerusalem. Because thou didst trust in thy way, which led you astray, in the multitude of thy mighty men. Therefore shall a tumult arise among thy people, and all thy fortresses shall be spoiled, and Shalman, as Shalman spoiled Beth Arbel in the day of the battle, but go on and so forth, so on and so forth. And pretty much this is what got Israel ripped out of that land into the Assyrians, so on and so forth. And then the same thing happened with Judah, because we read about Judah also. They got taken by the Babylonians, so on and so forth, but they continued in their wickedness. So the Lord had to send Yahawashi, Yahawah had to send Yahawashi to redeem the whole nation back to him. But in this time, it's only going to be the elect. Okay? So let's go back to the last verse that we read, which was the wild olive tree. And we're going to, Lord's will, come back to this verse here, and let me just make note of that so we could come back to that verse there. And Lord's will, we could do a part 2. Because now that you understand that, the rest of it is easy to break down. All right, Romans 11:17. And if some of the branches be broken off, which are the natural branches, which are the ones that knew that they were Jews, and thou being a wild olive tree, you Israelite foreigners were wild, because you were uncultured, you were uncultivated, you were foreigners from your commonwealth, right? Were grafted in among them because you are a part of that line or part of those people, and with them partakers of the root and fatness of the olive tree. Boast not against the branches, but if thou boast, thou bearest not the root, but the root thee. Right? Because you were brought back into it because you fell away. They were still there. You fell away. You went off. So with that, I'm gonna leave it there. And Lord's will, I could do a part 2 and finish the last few verses on this. But you pretty much get the idea. Right, Romans 11 chapter is talking about the Israelites, the ones that knew that they were Israelites, and the ones that were in a Gentile state of mind. So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters, were edified. The water for hanging in there. Till the next time I say, Shalom.